Hey, it's been a while, and we're doing a Tafo talk. And, I've been thinking a lot about game theory and strategy and content around it. And I saw a really interesting tweet the other day from Last, who's I believe, a Smash Ultimate coach with TL, I believe. And he pretty much went on a parody of a basketball tweet where, if you're given $1 million or up front, or if you had the opportunity to make $20 million if you scored more than 15 points in a game, like which would you pick? And then he took this and juxtaposed it to Melee, where he pretty much said, would you rather take $1 million up front, or in a best of five, would you, if you could take three or more stocks, you win $20 million. So interesting bet. For what it's worth, I think the basketball one is much harder than the Melee one. I think in a universe where I'm practicing basketball all the time, I still would not have a chance to score 15 points, let alone, like, I think 2 points would be kind of lucky in stretching it for me. And, if I got the four, like, I think even 4 points would be next to impossible. Like, if they were preventing me from scoring, I would literally have no chance. So that bet, I think, is astronomically harder than the Melee bet. But it's interesting, right? Because essentially it's a 19 to 1 bet. You're putting up $1 million to potentially win $19 million more. And I think when I read discussion on Twitter, people are assuming it's like a binary 50-50 bet where it's like, oh, like I think I have above a 50% chance of winning, so I should take it, or if I have less than 50% chance, I shouldn't take it. But that's not how this bet operates. It's a 19 to 1 bet. So pretty much, assuming the incremental value of money, like let's say like 1 million, like $20 million is worth 20 times more to you than $1 million, then it's a 19 to 1 bet. Now, of course, for most people, $1 million is a life-changing amount. So I would say, like, if you're not comfortable betting $1 million, even if it's not in your favor, you should probably just take the money. But it's kind of interesting, right? Because there's a dynamic in play here. Like if 19 to 1 isn't favorable, would you, under like the same conditions, would you take a 99 to 1 bet? Where if you won the bet, you make $100 million instead of $20 million, or a 999 to 1 bet where you make $1 billion instead of 20 million. Would you take the bet? If all the conditions were held the same. And I think that's one dynamic that's like really interesting to think about, because at what point does the incremental value of money justify the risk? And if we're saying that a 19 to 1 bet isn't quite high enough for you, given that $1 million is just so good already, at what point does that change? The other factor that's kind of interesting to think about, and I love thinking about this because I play a lot of poker, and the dynamics of a bet and thinking about how variables change also kind of influence how you play a hand. Stack sizes, type of hands, flop texture, little variables you can change to make you think of a classical problem in a new light. So that's one angle. But like, let's say we lowered the price. Like, if you were given $100 up front, or you can win $2,000, I'm sure a lot of people would take that bet, because the incremental value of $2,000 is so much more significant than $100, where like $100 isn't a life-changing amount. It doesn't guarantee much. And so I think a lot of people would risk there. So anyway, assuming, we're saying like, hey, like, how do we make a break even expected value bet, where at least 5.2% of the time we're going to win this. Like, we are, breaking even if the odds of this actually happening is 5.2%. You have to think about this also from the game designer, the person offering the bet, right? The people who are willing to take the bet are going to be self-selective. Like, so for example, if you're to tell me like, hey, can I, punch this punching bag and get this much power? Like, if I'm like 5 years old, like, and I know I have no chance, like, I'm not going to participate in that bet, right? On the flip side, if I'm a bodybuilder, I'm like, I don't know, like 250 in a boxer, of course I'm taking that bet. So the game designer has to really think about it from this perspective of, it's not out of global population, because it's an opt-in bet, and people who do not think they have a chance at playing are just going to take the $1 million. So pretty much the person has to design the bet in a way that out of all the people who think they can win the bet, or who are willing to participate in the bet, that only about 5.2% of people win. And for what it's worth, I think the people who would participate are people who play Melee, who are decent at Melee, who probably, play a decent amount. They grind on Slippy. They might go 2-2 or better at a local. So you're already getting a subset, and if that's a subset of people that are willing to participate, I actually do believe that it's going to be significantly higher than a 5.2% chance, because pretty much the bet stipulates like, hey, like in 3 games, like are you can you avoid getting 4 stock? That's basically what the bet is. If we're to rephrase it, like your goal is to just not get 4 stock. And granted, the people you're playing against, it's if I remember correctly, let me just put out the tweet again, it's I can read it for myself. Um, Top 5 melee player playing at their peak. Um, so it says Hungrybox Mango, so I'm gonna assume top 5. I assume that top 5 carries over to modern era, because Ken being a top 5 player of all time, he's clearly not a top 5 player today, and I would happily take that bet. So it'd probably be some combination like Mango, Zane, Jmook, Amsa, and whoever. So I think the reason why I think this bet is significantly easier than like 1 out of 20 is because it is extremely hard to 4 stock somebody. And basically you're saying like, can you avoid getting 4 stock? And if you know that's a game condition, then you can play around that bet. And it's not to say that the gods can't do it. Like I can totally see like a bunch of those players doing that. But on the flip side, you can play in a way that kind of lowers the variance of the game, where like if you're playing in a way to just guarantee 1 stock, it's actually much easier to do than trying to win the game, right? Like if you're to tell me like, can I win a game against Jmook, I probably can't. If I played 20 games with him, I frankly might win one, probably not. And so that's much harder than them having to take 1 stock 3 games in a row. So there's a bunch of ways you can do it. Like if we're doing 5 gods, originally I thought about this. Like, is it the 5 gods? And I thought, well, I think that's a little easy. Like, if I were to play like Mewtwo King, even though his peak was probably 2015, I think that's much easier. Like, I think frankly playing his Sheik in 2015, 2016 is much easier than playing like Jmook in 2023. But just for entertainment purposes, like I can show you how the strategy deviates. Like, for example, if I'm playing against Hungrybox, it's really straightforward. I have 4 lives to just generate damage. So pretty much in the first like 1 to 2 stocks, I'm just solely investing in trying to get as much damage as possible. My goal is to get like 40 damage in, and frankly, I think I'm a little bit much better than a player than that. That I could probably get 50, 60, 70 damage in before I lose my stock on average. And then the rest of the game is just camping the center stage. If Hungrybox can't rest me at this point, because if he rests me, then I win the game. I break even on that game, where I can just get rested, go off the side, and just charge up and up smash and kill him, and I get my 1 stock for the game. So I think Hungrybox is actually much easier in these regards. I would probably not play Fox or Falco, mainly because of the variance factor. Like you can get back thrown, and then you can get bared 3 times, and you can get edge guarded at early percentages. You could play that strategy. You could probably just play a back air game, and then just avoid getting grabbed. Actually, I think Armada's Peach would actually, in these regards, if you're not playing a Spacey or something that gets comboed really easily, is actually pretty much straightforward. This isn't a disrespect to Armada. This is just how Peach operates as a character. If you play like Sheik or like Marth or something, like frequently what happens with Peach and how Peach works is that she wins off of trades, meaning that even if she does like 25 damage, she still takes like 15 damage. And pretty much you're playing around this idea that you're racking up damage, you're spacing back airs. It's really hard for Peach to just get clean hits, so you're going to rack up damage. And like if you're just remotely competent, like you should be able to get 1 stock off the game. So floaties are easy as long as you're not playing Fox or Falco. I can totally see if I played Fox or like a bunch of decent Fox players playing Armada and getting 4 stocked. And so you just want to avoid those high variance scenarios. I think spaces are actually much easier. So if if you play against Mango or like PPMD's Falco, and you play like Peach or Sheik or something or Marth, I think it's really hard for a Spacey to consistently 4 stock. 4 stock, right? It's not a sign of disrespect to PPMD or Mango. It's just extremely hard. Like you watch Mango play like Smash the Record, where he's really trying his best to not lose stocks, and he still loses stocks to like really casual players. And so overall, like I'm just trying to just emphasize, it is extremely hard from the top players' perspective to constantly force stock a person. And if a person's taking this bet and they're like decently good on Slippy, or like they're like a top 200-ish player, like it's just really hard. So those are just like my general thoughts like on the bet. I think it's significantly easier than having to score 15 points in an NBA game. I would say like the scoring 15 points in the NBA game is magnitudes harder. Like first off, like you just have to be like at least 6 feet tall, like probably 6'3", 6'5" to even stand a chance. You have to be hyper athletic. You have to be training and uh, there are many players in the NBA that don't score 15 points in a game. Like it is, and the level of skill of an NBA player is like magnitudes and magnitudes better than anything I could muster in my life. Even if I were training for a lifetime, like if I trained my entire life and to go into an NBA game to score, like maybe I score 3 points. So definitely think this is really doable. Overall, I would say most people would probably just take the $1 million. But if you look at this from a game design standpoint, people who have to opt in, they need to have the game designer needs to design this in a way that's a 19-1 bet. I think most people are a lot higher than that. It's not to say that the players can't force stock in at least one game, but I think it's like closer to like a 50-50 bet, honestly, if you're like a top 200 player. And these are like the players that are opting into this. I'm pretty confident that most of them can take at least a stock a game on average. And so yeah, those are just my general thoughts. I'm kind of curious if you guys have other ideas for me of things I can talk about that are strategic oriented. I like talking about strategy, less about kind of drama in the community. And also want to hear your thoughts on all of this as well. Like, do you think that 19-1 is a fair bet for people who are willing to opt into something like this? Thank you.